Question 77 Challenges to Indian Democracy. Introduction, the idea and promise of Indian democracy. India, the world's largest democracy, is founded on the ideals of liberty, equality, justice, and fraternity enshrined in the preamble of the Constitution. It is a parliamentary democracy, where the government is responsible to the people. Power flows from the consent of the governed, and citizens enjoy fundamental rights ensuring dignity and participation. However, despite its constitutional strength and periodic elections, Indian democracy faces several deep-seated challenges: social, political, economic, and institutional that test its quality, inclusiveness, and stability. These challenges do not negate democracy but compel it to evolve, as India strives to translate democratic ideals into social reality. 1. Socioeconomic inequalities. One of the greatest challenges to Indian democracy lies in persistent socioeconomic inequality. While political democracy grants equal voting rights, economic inequality restricts real freedom and participation. A small elite controls a large share of wealth and resources, while millions live in poverty. Example: the top 10% of India's population holds nearly 77% of the national wealth, as per Oxfam reports. Consequences: poor citizens are often unable to exercise their rights fully. Economic dependence leads to vote buying, clientelism, and corruption. Inequality distorts representation and weakens social justice. Connection to theory. As Dr. B.R. Ambedkar warned, political democracy cannot last unless there lies at the base of it social democracy. 2. Casteism and communalism. Caste and religion, though socially rooted, continue to dominate political behavior and electoral politics. Casteism. Political parties often mobilize caste loyalties to gain votes, leading to identity politics rather than issue-based governance. Caste discrimination and violence still persist, undermining equality and fraternity. Example: caste-based vote banks and reservation debates often polarize society, leading to divisions instead of unity. Communalism. The use of religion for political gain threatens secularism, one of the core principles of the Constitution. Communal riots, hate speech, and religious intolerance weaken the democratic fabric. Example: incidents of communal violence. Example: Delhi riots 2020, Gujarat 2002, expose how easily political manipulation of religion can erode social harmony. Constitutional principle. Article 25 to 28 guarantee freedom of religion but prohibit political exploitation of faith. 3. Corruption and criminalization of politics. Corruption corrodes democratic governance. By subverting law, distorting public policy, and eroding trust. When public offices are used for private gain, democracy becomes hollow. Example: scandals such as the 2G spectrum case, coal block allocation, and local-level bribery show how corruption permeates governance. Criminalization of politics adds another dimension. Political parties often field candidates with criminal backgrounds. The nexus between money, muscle, and politics undermines free and fair representation. Statistics. According to the Association for Democratic Reforms, ADR, over 40% of MPs in the current Lok Sabha have criminal cases pending against them. Impact. erodes public faith in institutions, shifts focus from governance to power struggle, makes elections expensive and exclusionary. 4. Communal and regional fragmentation. India's vast diversity often leads to regionalism and separatism, challenging national unity. Regionalism. Demands for separate states, autonomy, or special privileges emerge when development is uneven or identity is ignored. Example: Telangana Movement, 2014, Gorkhaland, Bodoland. Separatist movements. Certain regions like Kashmir and the Northeast have seen insurgencies demanding independence or greater autonomy. Consequences. While federalism accommodates diversity, excessive regionalism can weaken national integration and democratic stability. Gandhian relevance. Gandhi believed that true unity must arise from moral and voluntary cooperation, not coercion. 5. Electoral malpractices and money power. Elections are the lifeblood of democracy, but in India, they are often tainted by money power, muscle power, and misinformation. Challenges include vote buying and bribery, paid news and media bias, use of caste and religion to influence voters, increasing influence of corporate funding and opaque political donations. Example: the introduction of electoral bonds, 2018, has increased debate about transparency in political financing. Consequences. Such malpractices distort popular choice, compromise accountability, and convert democracy into plutocracy, rule by the wealthy. 6. Weakness of democratic institutions. Democratic institutions, parliament, judiciary, election commission, and media form the pillars of Indian democracy. Yet, over-centralization, political interference, and institutional decline pose serious threats. Examples: parliament sessions are often disrupted, reducing deliberation and accountability. Bureaucracy faces political pressure, weakening neutrality. Judiciary faces delays and backlog, over 4 crore cases pending. Result: institutional erosion leads to policy paralysis, weak checks and balances, and declining public trust. Connection. As Alexis de Tocqueville observed, democracy depends not only on laws but also on the moral vitality of its institutions. 7. Gender inequality and low political representation of women. Despite constitutional equality, women in India continue to face economic, social, and political discrimination. Example: women constitute almost 50% of the population but only around 15% of parliament. Challenges. Patriarchal mindset and social barriers restrict participation. Violence against women undermines equality and safety. Lack of implementation of gender justice laws. Reform. The 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendments reserved 1/3 of seats for women in local bodies, a major step, but national-level representation remains inadequate. Proposed step. The Women's Reservation Bill, 108th Amendment, seeks 33% reservation for women in Parliament and state legislatures. 8. Media polarization and misinformation. A free and independent press is vital for democracy. However, media commercialization, fake news, and partisan reporting threaten informed public opinion. Example: social media platforms are increasingly used for propaganda, hate speech, and misinformation, influencing elections and public perception. Consequence: manipulation of truth undermines citizens' ability to make rational political choices, a core democratic principle. 9. Youth apathy and decline of democratic values. While India has a large youth population, political participation beyond voting is low. Many young citizens see politics as corrupt or irrelevant. Result: apathy and disillusionment weaken civic engagement and democratic accountability. Educational institutions often fail to cultivate democratic values like tolerance, dialogue, and dissent. Example: decline in campus debates and intolerance toward differing opinions are symptoms of democratic fatigue. 10. Threats to secularism and pluralism. Secularism, the equal respect for all religions, is the cornerstone of India's unity. Yet, increasing religious polarization, identity politics, and majoritarianism threaten the secular fabric. Example: mob lynchings, communal propaganda, and intolerance toward minorities contradict Article 25's spirit of religious freedom. A democracy that discriminates against any community ceases to be truly democratic, as equality and fraternity are its moral foundation. 11. Environmental and developmental challenges. Rapid industrialization and urbanization have led to environmental degradation, displacement, and inequitable development. When environmental justice is neglected, democratic rights to life and dignity, Article 21, are compromised. Example: movements like Chipko, Narmada Bachao Andolan, and Save RA reflect popular democratic resistance to environmental injustice. Thus, sustainable development has become a democratic challenge of the 21st century. 12. Misuse of technology and surveillance. While digital governance enhances efficiency, it also raises concerns about privacy, surveillance, and data misuse. Example: the Supreme Court in the Puttaswamy case, 2017, recognized the right to privacy as a fundamental right, acknowledging the need to balance state surveillance with civil liberties. Unchecked technological control can transform democracy into digital authoritarianism. 13. Federal tensions and centralization of power. Although India is a federal union, increasing centralization in fiscal, administrative, and political matters often undermines state autonomy. Examples: disputes over GST revenue distribution, central agencies' overreach in state affairs, governors' misuse of powers, Article 356. Such tendencies weaken cooperative federalism and disturb the balance of power envisaged in the Constitution. 14. Summary for quick understanding. Indian democracy faces challenges arising from social inequality, corruption, casteism, communalism, weak institutions, gender disparity, and threats to secularism and federalism. These challenges reflect the gap between constitutional ideals and social realities. Yet, India's democracy remains resilient due to its constitutional framework, active judiciary, free elections, and vibrant civil society. The task ahead is to deepen democracy, making it not just political, but also social, economic, and moral. Quick revision notes. 1. Socioeconomic inequality, political freedom without social equality. 2. Casteism and communalism, divisive identity politics. 3. Corruption and criminalization, erosion of trust. 4. Regionalism, tension between unity and diversity. 5. Electoral malpractices, money and muscle power. 6. Institutional decline, weakening of parliament, judiciary, bureaucracy. 7. Gender inequality, underrepresentation of women. 8. Media distortion, fake news and polarization. 9. Youth apathy, weakening civic culture. 10. Threat to secularism, rise of intolerance. 11. Environmental neglect, injustice to future generations. 12. Technological misuse, privacy and surveillance threats. 13. Federal tensions, over-centralization of power. One-line questions and answers for revision. 1. What is the biggest socio-political challenge to Indian democracy? Casteism and communalism. 2. What is meant by criminalization of politics? Entry of individuals with criminal backgrounds into politics. 3. Which article guarantees equality before law? Article 14. 4. What is cooperative federalism? Coordination between center and states. 5. What kind of democracy did Ambedkar envision? Social and economic democracy along with political democracy. 6. Which case upheld the right to privacy? Justice K.S. Puttaswamy v. Union of India, 2017. 7. What is the role of media in democracy? To inform, educate, and act as a watchdog. 8. Which amendments ensured women's political participation in local bodies? 73rd and 74th Amendments. 9. What is the greatest institutional safeguard of democracy? Independent judiciary. 10. What is the long-term solution to India's democratic challenges? Strengthening civic education, equality, and moral integrity in politics. Final connection. The challenges to Indian democracy are not signs of its failure but tests of its depth and resilience. They remind us that democracy is not a finished structure but a living process requiring constant vigilance, reform, and moral renewal. As Jawaharlal Nehru rightly said, democracy is good. I say this because other systems are worse. But democracy requires the constant effort of every generation. Thus, the future of Indian democracy depends not only on institutions but on the civic conscience of its citizens, for a democracy is only as strong as the people who sustain it.